Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining me for this episode. This is the first episode of the second part of this year, so it's Tuesday, the 1st of July. And it's 8:15 in the morning, and I'm sitting in front of a really powerful fan because the heat is already, well, it's 27 degrees inside this morning. And I've got a really busy day ahead and a really busy evening. So I thought I will come and do the podcast now. So sorry if you listened to my last episode and it sort of reduced you to tears or abject misery. It was a little bit miserable. I had a bit of a meltdown on Friday, and in fact, a bit of a meltdown over the weekend as well. Just, just having a bit of a pity party for myself, feeling very sorry for myself. As someone said to me over the weekend, well, you chose a plot that didn't have any water. And I thought, well, yes, that sums the problem up really, really nicely. And yes, that is exactly the problem, because if I had water up there, everything would be fine. Well, maybe it would be fine. Who knows? So we did have quite a busy weekend. To be honest, I can't remember any of it. Like, my brain is gone a bit foggy. I'm also I'm having hot flushes at the moment, and I am on HRT, but I wonder if I need to stick a larger patch on, because I can't tell you the horror, or maybe you know this already, the horror of having hot flushes in a heat wave. It is just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm also, quite foggy at the moment, which is not helpful because there's so much going on. So if you're also experiencing the same thing, you have my sympathy. And for those of you, if you're young listening to this, you've got this all to look forward to. So we did some work up at the plot over the weekend. My other half brought water over for me in the back of his transit van, which was very much needed. And then we siphoned it down from IBC1 down to IBC2. And that has been wonderful, but it's nowhere near enough. And ironically, everything looks really huge and generous and massive away from the plot. And then as soon as you take it to the field, everything just looks neither one thing nor the other. It just doesn't look very much. So all this water comes out of the van, and you think, oh yeah, this is amazing. And then you put it into the IBC and you've got about 500 litres, and you think, oh my goodness, all this work. Anyway, we did that, and he made me a new gate to access the plot. So up until now, I've had to go into Roland's area through a gate and then through another gate to get into the plot. And I have tried to make it look quite nice, and I've put bark down so you don't get slippery, and back in the days when we actually had some rain. But it has been quite challenging trying to carry trays of plants through. And obviously, if it's a windy day, sometimes the gate blows open and Roland escapes, and then there's absolute carnage. And normally I'm like completely the other end of the field by then, and I have to run over, which is not easy, in order to sort everything out. Some of the ladies have really, really got the hots for Roland. And it tends to be the smaller, more fragile, delicate ladies. I've got one girl, Molly, and she's about 500 years old. And when you pick her up, she literally creaks. All of her joints are very old and very stiff. And she's tiny. She's a tiny little Pekin bantam. So she's only about, I don't know, 9 inches tall. And she's absolutely crazy in love with Roland. And it's the worst kind of relationship, because he's about 3 foot tall. And I have no idea how much he weighs. I must take some scales up actually and weigh him. And that's all quite disastrous, that is. So I have to be very careful about that. And of course, when you take carrying plants through, you can't put them down, because if you put anything down for 2 seconds, the ducks will strip it. So it was becoming a bit of a challenge, and we were trying to think about how to do it. And you know me, I like to do things, quick, get them done, move on to the next task. So I decided to just cut the inner portion of a Harris fence panel out completely with bolt cutters, excuse me, and then use the part that had been cut out to form the basis of the gate. And after some negotiation, that is exactly what happened. and then we have cut the inner section into two so that you basically have double gates going into the plot. Sounds a hell of a lot posher than it actually is. I can put a photo on the Instagram. It's very, very basic, but it does the job. But what happened yesterday, what I discovered yesterday, is that when my other half was cutting the inner pieces of this panel out of the frame with his bolt cutters, he hasn't necessarily cut right back to the frame. So I managed to step on one of the exposed verticals, which went right through my shoe and right through my foot. So I've now got a hole in the sole of my foot, which if you've ever trodden on anything sharp is so painful. And this is another reason why I just want to wear my Steelies all the time, because apart from the fact that they've got a really enormous tread, you've then got a piece of metal, so nothing goes through them. They're absolutely incredible, but obviously they're too hot to wear in this weather. So I've been up there in like these little pumps, and it's really, really not suitable. Anyway, I think I'll put a plank of wood down or something so that doesn't happen again. So that is something very productive that we've done. I've got one dahlia that's actually budded up. Hugely exciting. And it just sort of came out of nowhere. So that is lovely. And we're going to be finishing off the staking later this week when I've got some road pins rather. The first batch of zinnias are doing really well after a pretty slow and shaky start. They've suddenly bushed up and made these gorgeous, really green, lush looking plants. The second batch is looking a little bit iffy. They're quite new and they're not quite sure what is going on yet, but I think they're going to be fine. The sweet peas are to die for. They're absolutely gorgeous. They have the most incredible long stems. These are the ones I bought from Roger Parsons, who's like the UK's sweet pea man. And the scent is gorgeous. The flowers just lovely, and as I say, the stem length is really impressive. So I'm so happy with those, and they've been one of the easiest things to deal with actually after the whole toilet roll faff at the beginning. They've just been completely effortless. I've been deadheading cornflowers like a crazy person, which is very time consuming, but the white ones hopefully will be going off to a wedding that my lovely florist is doing this weekend, and it's a kind of whites and pinks theme. So I've been deadheading them in the anticipation that they will be ready for cutting long stems on, I think I'm going to be cutting Thursday morning and delivering Friday morning for those. But again, hugely time consuming. And I had been snipping the shorter flowers, deadheading them basically, but keeping the shorter flowers and filling up all these small jars that I've been collecting for years. And then it got to the point yesterday where I just thought there isn't enough time to get through all of this. So I was just dropping them all on the floor, which just felt absolute sacrilege. But I kept having to tell myself over and over again, you're deadheading, you're deadheading, you're deadheading. It's not a waste, you're deadheading. And I can't keep storing all of these little tiny bud vases of cornflowers, because in this heat, and it was well over 33 yesterday, everything is flagging. So it's an awful lot of time and effort to collect all these things only for them to just wilt and not last very long. It's not worth it. So keeping everything watered and cool is quite a mission. It takes a few hours every evening, and the plot gets the evening sun. So I'm avoiding doing too much up there until the temperatures have dropped, because it is just like an oven up there. But after we had that not the second, that the load of water over the weekend that my other half did me on Sunday, I could water everything really well yesterday. And then at home, I've got loads of seedlings and I've got plants in trays. I mean, there is just stuff absolutely everywhere. Little bedding plants that I'm waiting to put into a hanging basket. And I've got 15 rudbeckias out there in trays, which also need a home. So just keeping an eye on all of that is really bonkers, and trying to keep things out of the sun and just, watering during the day. So it's all quite a lot at the moment. But the most exciting thing I have to tell you about, and this is what the second part of the podcast is going to be about, is that I had my Flower Hub meeting yesterday. Oh, it was brilliant. Honestly, absolutely brilliant. Definitely one of my highlights of the year. So it was hosted by a lady called Fenella, who runs flower fields near Cookham, and she is a flower and foliage farm, and she's decided to set up this hub for local growers. So it was an opportunity yesterday for local growers to come onto her site and meet her and talk about the plans for the hub. And while we're there, she also gave us a tour of her growing space, which I will also talk to you about briefly without giving away any trade secrets. So Fenella is the perfect hostess. We sat on this beautiful table with chairs with cushions under a gorgeous, gorgeous big tree. And she brought out water with little, I think they were forget me not flowers frozen into the ice cubes, and a tray of gooseberry and elderflower frangipan tarts. Little tiny, tiny little things. And they were so good. And I think I asked her at that point if I could just move into her house, just because I just thought, this is fabulous. Um, you can tell a lot about people by how they look after you when you arrive. And that was just such a nice touch. And she was such a nice lady. And the other ladies who turned up were very nice. And you know what I said to you last week, why I was looking forward to it, because I do feel a little bit lonely and isolated and overwhelmed with all of this. And it was so nice to just talk shop with other ladies who are going through the same things, who've had, ups and downs and challenges, and what's everyone growing and how are they getting on with it, and what's gone wrong and what's doing well and what's not. So we talked a bit about everything before we even got started to talk about the hub. And I think the hub is going to be amazing. I really do. So Fenella talked us through it, and then she showed us what the website is going to look like, which is the place where us growers are going to list what we have available. And then the florists can hop on the website and purchase what they want. And then we growers go and deliver to Fenella's the orders, and then the florists come and pick them up. So I think it's going to be brilliant. The website looked lovely, very easy to use, very straightforward. And I think it's going to be amazing for us growers, because it just opens us up, or opens somebody like me up to a far greater number of florists. So at the moment, I've got my lovely wedding and event florist, Joe, that I work with. And then there's another florist in my nearby town who I sold to last year, who's very much like my kind of style of flowers and arrangements. But that's really been the extent of it, because some florists in my area are not matching with my style, and I'm not going to be a good fit for them. And I don't know, I'm not very good at like traveling long distances anymore. So I'm not really going to get in the car and travel for 35, 40 minutes to meet another florist. So I very much wanted to keep it locally. So it's kind of perfect, really, because Fenella's place is about 8 minutes drive away from the plot. So I can get stuff up there really quickly. And she's got a lovely setup, and I think it's going to work really well. So it's going to come online later in the summer. There's still quite a lot of work to be done, and a bit of testing and whatnot. And Fenella's taking it slowly so that she gets it right, and that when it launches, it's completely ready. And I think she's quite right to do that. We don't want to rush out a whole website and then just have loads of glitchy problems, because everyone will get upset. And the product is obviously perishable, so excuse me, things do have to be right. So I'm very confident that she's going to do a terrific job. I mean, I can't wait to get started. I just think the idea of filling the little forms in online, and seeing everything up there, and seeing what other people are offering as well. It will be quite interesting. We'll have a bit more visibility on what other people are charging for what they've got, which, when you work in isolation, or even in this industry, I'm finding there's quite a lot of secrecy, not secrecy, lack of openness. No, not even lack, just a lack of open. I don't know what I'm saying. Basically, no one talks about pricing. So there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just that everybody's a secret squirrel. It's that it does depend on lots of different factors, and whether you've got a glut, and how long the stems are, and how much demand there is, and blah, blah, blah. But it's not like walking into a shop where you can just see all the prices and go, oh, well, I'll sell mine for that because that's how much it is in the shop. So I think having the website, we'll be able to see what other people are putting their stems up for. And it's, yeah, there are absolutely loads and loads of pros. I think the only con to it, um, for somebody like me who's always broke, is that the florist, I think, will pay at the point of ordering, and us growers invoice at the end of every month. So if you sell a lot of stems at the beginning of a month, for example, on the first or something, you're not going to get paid for them for a whole month. And even then, you put an invoice in and it's going to be on 7-day terms. So that is quite a lag. And I will just have to make sure that I'm a more efficient grower and that I have a bit of money in the bank so that it doesn't make a difference. Because obviously, normally, if you hand stuff over to a florist, they either give you the money there and then, or you can bring an invoice along and then they'll invoice you on whatever your terms are. So it's a much quicker turnaround. And I've always quite liked that, especially with, perishable goods. It's like I'm going to buy a sandwich, but I don't want to get paid for sell a sandwich and then I'll get paid for it in a month's time, or a month and a week's time. It's like that's a very long time for something that's already been and gone and been disposed of. But that is how it's going to work with the hub, so I'm going to just have to suck that up. But um, that is literally the only downside that I could see, and it's not exactly a downside. It's just the fact that I live hand to mouth, therefore it's a downside for me. I'm sure for other people, they're not even going to think twice about it. So after that, we had a tour of Fenella's growing space, which was really lovely. And she had the biggest astrantia I've ever seen in my life. I kid you not, they were about 4 foot tall. So she's up on clay where she is, which is just interesting because we're, in the Chilterns, we're predominantly chalk here. But there are these seams of clay running through, and if you're sat on one, it can be absolutely fantastic. So lucky her, she's on some clay, and her Alchemilla mollis were also fantastic. And she had some very beautiful dahlias, some of which were flowering, and she'd actually cut some for the table so that we got to look at those. And she's got some very nice foliage and even more that's going to be coming along from what's been planted. And she also had a row of the most fascinating hypericum I've ever seen. So hypericum, I've only ever seen it in people's gardens, and it's got this very lax, loose habit, and it sort of drapes itself over everything, and then you just end up cutting it back all the time. And she's got a row of an upright hypericum, which I know now I think it's Magical Grace. If not Grace, it's part of the Magical series. And they are upright hypericums. So all the stems just literally go straight up. I thought, oh my goodness, that is perfect. And that's what you get when you start meeting other people and going around their plots and seeing what everybody else is doing, because it's absolutely priceless. So massive thanks to Fenella for organising that meeting and for organising the hub. And I know I'm not the only one that's massively excited. I cannot wait to get started. I really can't. I think it's going to be brilliant. And I'm thinking also that I might get the opportunity to bump into other growers when I'm dropping flowers off, maybe as well, which would be nice, because it is nice to touch base with people and have flower friends out there. It's important. So that is all I wanted to talk to you about today. We've got, I think, the last day of the heat wave today, 33 at least. I mean, I think it's going to be even a bit hotter than it was yesterday, which I am not enjoying in the slightest. But after today, cools down quite a lot. Still no rain until next week. I'm sure it's going to wait until I'm actually doing a planting job next week for a client. And then I'm sure I'll get absolutely dolloped on, and I won't be able to complain because it's what I've been asking for months now. So I do hope you've enjoyed the episode, and I very much hope that you will come back and join me on Friday where I fill you in on what else I've been up to this week. So have a great week and happy growing, and I'll catch you soon.